Ladies and gentlemen, so now I'd like to continue on the topic of Colombia, and I just told you about my visit to Bogota, this surprise visit. It was a surprise for me as much as for everyone else. Um, and so, as I was saying, I visited the mountain of Monserrate, and I also went to the house of Simon Bolivar. After this, my newfound friend took me to an emerald museum. Now, I don't know if you knew, but the country in the world which produces the most emeralds is Colombia. And when I stepped into this museum, at first I saw that I saw a few exhibitions about emeralds, how they're extracted, how the process of cutting them is carried out, and then how they are then brought to market eventually. Um, it was all very interesting, but then I noticed I was the only person there, and then I was taken into another room which was no longer a museum, and I realized that the real reason why I had been brought there, I wasn't kidnapped, as you may be thinking. I was I found myself in a room selling very expensive jewellery, and because I had had the wonderful tour around the museum, I was then expected to buy something, and there were many assistants there who were very nice and very helpful, saying, "Oh, you could buy this one for your wife. You can buy this one for someone else," and blah blah blah. So I had to kind of find a polite way of getting out, because there wasn't really anything below $100. So I wasn't really willing to pay $100 for my short visit to the museum. So I just gave them a little tip and I left. Although they were kind of looking at me a little bit like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You came here to buy emeralds, didn't you? So anyway, I left. I left the Emerald Museum, and I went to another museum, but this one was a real museum, and it is quite an astounding museum at that. I went to visit the Gold Museum of Bogota. It's a huge building, and I don't know how many kilos or tons of gold there are in there in total, but it's absolutely enormous, the amount of gold they have. Now, all of this gold is from the time before the Spanish conquistadors arrived. The gold comes from the indigenous groups who were living in Colombia and in other parts of South America in the time before Columbus. And these when the conquistadors eventually arrived in Latin America, they were amazed. They were so taken aback at all of the gold that they saw when they were exploring Latin America, and this is because the locals at the time, they would use gold to adorn their bodies. They would decorate themselves with it. They would wear it. There were all kinds of fascinating pieces that I saw in the museum. For example, giant gold plates that would hang from the nose of the village chief, and or very extravagant earrings or headdresses, all made out of gold, or statues of canoes made out of gold. So these were the Inca people who made all of these wonderful objects, and for them, gold was actually so common that it wasn't really anything of great value. It was, of course, something that they appreciated, but it didn't have the same value as for a European. So when the Spanish arrived, guess what they did? Well, they took a lot of it away, took it back to Spain, and enriched themselves with it that way. However, a lot of the gold did stay in South America, and it was recovered and then taken to the museum where it is now on display. And I would very much recommend you go there. Also in the Gold Museum, you can hear about the story of El Dorado. El Dorado was a fictional figure, but he was almost like a myth that the Spanish believed in. The conquistadors had heard that there was a great deal of gold in the jungle or up in the mountains, and but the story gathered pace so much that it became, well, one rumor turned into another, and eventually the idea, the myth of El Dorado was created. So El Dorado was supposedly a man who was made out of gold, or whose very essence was gold itself. And if you went and found El Dorado, then supposedly you would have endless amounts of gold. And so the Spanish hacked through the jungle trying to find this mythical place. Then finally, just to finish off, when I finished my visit to the Gold Museum, I went outside and I looked around for a nice place to eat, and I had a typical Colombian dish, which is known as bandeja paisana. It's a very heavy dish. It really, really fills you up. It's lots of meat of different types, big sausages, and very filling, very delicious. So I recommend a similar trip to all of you. Thank you.